development that currently exists downtown out into areas that has high poverty and high crimes. Make no mistake, it does exist in District 7. And I want to present a vision and a plan that's going to change all of it. And we'll be hearing more about that tonight during this discussion. So thank you all for coming, and I appreciate sharing your questions and my ideas with you.
Again, thank you for coming. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever. I'm Manny Rico, and I'm a 47-year resident of St. Elmo. I love the city. I served on the city council from 2005 to 2013. I think I did a good job, but people have a different opinion. But I've been asked to run again. There's a lot of people think that I did a good job and that it was just a small turnout and nobody came out and voted. It was kind of a perfect storm, a bad storm that day, and nobody came out and voted. But I have been encouraged and asked to run again. I love to serve. In the last 21 years, I've served on 19 different boards, so I kind of know across sections of the city and the county how people feel, how they feel about their government, and I'm willing to serve, and I hope to be able to serve you again.
Okay, thanks very much for that. We have had questions come in both through our website and through email lists, previously some tonight. So we will try to get as many as we can. I've got 3 pages of questions, plus cards. So.
Do you want to rotate? Who answers first?
Yes, we'll go to Erskine.
This is roughly the 150th forum we've all been to for the last 10 years. That's the way most people do it.
Well, and we will hope we'll give you something new to answer. Okay. So we'll try our best. This came in a couple of different forms. Let me read the one that's submitted tonight. Communication is vital. How important is it for you to be accessible to your constituents since you have no support staff? So.
I believe it's extremely important. When I decided to run for city councilman, my wife and I, we prayed on it, and back in September. And essentially, what she made me promise is that I would be accessible. I would be available to the people, regardless of what the circumstances are. And I don't see how you can be a city councilman if you can't attend the meetings, if you can't answer phone calls, if you can't return emails, because that's the basis of why we're here. I look at this as a job, and my job, hopefully y'all will hire me on March 7th. And that means that I have to be committed to be available and sharing ideas, and when we have difference of opinion, to kind of find a common ground. And I have no problem with that. So I would not be up here running for the office of city council if I didn't believe I would be accessible, I would be available, and I would be your voice.
Being accessible is the number one job of the city council. When I was elected for 8 years, I let my family run my business. I have a family business, Rico Monuments. I completely let my family run it where I could be a full-time city councilman. Now, most of the people on city council have other jobs. I worked it as a full-time job. On my paycheck, every time I got a paycheck every 2 weeks, it had 80 hours. Now, I work days, I work nights, I work weekends. It's not just on the city council night, but people will call you and ask you to come to churches, to events, to ribbon cuttings. And to me, that's an elected official's responsibility. As far as being accessible, of course, you almost have got 2 for 1, because my constituents had my work number and my wife was there. Of course, we talked about everything, and she knew about as much of what was going on as I did. And a lot of times she would take the calls and answer people, tell them what to call, where to go, or get back to me. They had my work number, my personal cell, my city cell, and the city down there. And I told the people down there, or clerks down at the city council, said, you give anybody my number, they can always get a hold of me. It didn't matter. And I was probably the most accessible councilman on the council and the hardest working one, I guarantee you. Because that's one thing, nobody will outwork me.
Cal, that's a good question. Whoever asked that has a pretty intimate knowledge of city government. So there are 9 city council people. We share actually 3 full-time staff members. And I serve on the personnel subcommittee. We recently restructured the way we do our staff because accessibility is important. Also following through when someone accesses you is important. But the fact of the matter is, between phone calls, emails, Twitter direct messages, Facebook messages, in-person messages, we've got about 19,000 people in each of our districts. And as hard as anyone tries to answer every single person that contacts them, every member on the council has let things fall through the cracks. So we've recently restructured, and for the first time ever on this council, the city council staff can now help handle constituent complaints and communication. That's been going on for a few months. We're already seeing this working a lot better, and we're looking at putting more of our staff resources into handling constituent complaints, so nothing falls through the cracks anymore. Which I think is a really good program. And also, I am accessible in all the social media and technologically advanced ways you can get me. I try to be as accessible as possible.
Good. Thank you. You can just hold on to that, pass it down to Manny. Next question. Considering the struggles of our public schools, the unaffordability of private schools, and a dysfunctional school board, what can the city council do to help the increasing number of families in St. Elmo with young children?
Of course, the city is not in the school business. I mean, other than trying to work with our school board representative, and maybe preschool that we fund, there's not a whole lot we can do about the school board, school system. If you talk to school boards, they'll tell you mind your own business. If you just talk to the county, they'll say, we'll take care of the schools, y'all take care of what y'all do.
Well, I beg to differ with at least one thing. I have weekly meetings with Tiffany Robinson, who's the school board member for the biggest part of District 7 every week, and she's never told me to mind my own business. We talk about ways the city and the county can partner to increase educational opportunities. While it's true that the city of Chattanooga doesn't operate a school system, I feel like we have a moral obligation to do after-school programs, summer programs in places like this South Chattanooga YFD Center, where in those summer programs sometimes the snack that those kids get is the only healthy food they're getting that day because school is not in session during the summer. I think we also have an obligation to people who are past K through 12 to offer workforce development opportunities through training organizations like the IBEW Apprenticeship Academy, the Ironworkers Apprenticeship, and also partner with groups like Chattanooga State to put people back to work and train them for modern jobs.
I believe we are in the school district, in the school business, because our kids go to Hamilton County Department of Education schools. One of the ways I believe that we can help in that process, and I'm intimately in communication with them through programs I've done, through other organizations I've been in. And it's really key that we make sure our kids have activities outside the school to support what the school does. Particularly since we don't have anything directly to do with the Department of Education, Hamilton County Department of Education, but we do. So I propose that we just continue to develop programs that will help our kids to become mentally and academically prepared for school. And as long as we do that, I think we'll be all right.
Okay, Chris, my question is about the Eastlake Middle School building. I've heard that it's slated for demolition. I'd like to know what the city councilman knows about it, what their plans are for that area, and if there's any way the building could be saved.
Well, that is a great possibility. I was actually there this morning. The city Blue Trees Project partnered with the gardening club at Eastlake Academy to plant blue trees along Dodds Avenue. So I was there with the kids planting trees with them. It was really rewarding, and that kind of thing is probably the best part of this job. So Eastlake Academy is possibly going to be demolished in the next few years to build a new school for Eastlake. So there will be a new middle school in Eastlake. Tiffany Robinson and I, one of the things we meet about pretty often, because that's in her district, District 4, on the school board, is ways to utilize the property for the community good in the meantime while we're constructing a new school, and then put it to some permanent community use after that.
Now, I will admit that much I'm not familiar with, but I would get with Tiffany Robinson and find out more in detail about what that process is going to actually look like. The thing that concerns me is what is said now may not be what happened in the future. And that concerns me across the board. So what I will do is follow up with Tiffany and the school board and make sure that there is a viable plan for that school and make sure that it's followed up on in a timely manner. And most of all, that the community know on the front end of what's happening with that situation.
Well, now, what school are you talking about? The old elementary school?
All I have is a question that came on the email list, East Lake Middle School building. So,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, I haven't heard anything about them tearing that, and that would be the county. That's a county school. I mean, I haven't heard anything about, there's an old elementary school that has been tossed around for years, but what can be done with that? But, you know, if it belongs to the county, there's not a whole lot that the city can do about it. And for my understanding, all the schools are county schools and owned by the county.
okay. Next, where am I? First?
I'll take it.
Yeah. I think that's where we are.
Okay.
This is, another one came through our email list. As the Tennessee legislature, considers bills to allow discrimination against LGBTQ members of our community, will you as a city councilman stand up to the state if needed in order to protect the rights of LGBTQ members of our community to marry, have all the benefits of marriage and equal parenthood of children, shared benefits, and to receive services from taxpayer-funded providers in the community that guarantee that they will not discriminate against anyone in need of services regardless of sexual orientation?
Yeah, I believe that has been handled by the United States Supreme Court and under the EEOC, that nobody should be discriminated regardless of what your sex, age, or sexual orientation. So based on that alone, if they follow the law as mandated by the United States Supreme Court, that should take care of itself.
Well, I believe in civil rights for everybody. I don't believe in special rights for anybody. I think everybody should be treated equal. What you're talking about is something that we have no control over. I don't think it's a city council to get into social issues like that that's going to be done by the state or national. So, you know, whatever the law is, I'm for it.
I think my position is probably pretty well known on this issue. You've got Google, check it out. So once again, I disagree. It is a city council issue to some extent, and I disagree actually with both of my fine opponents. First of all, the Supreme Court did not guarantee LGBT equality in hiring, in employment retention, or in housing refusal. So those things are still things you can be discriminated against for being LGBT. The Supreme Court did not guarantee those rights for LGBT Americans the way they did for racial minorities, women, and other ethnic groups. And as far as it being a city council issue, until I passed a non-discrimination ordinance a year ago, you could be fired from the city of Chattanooga for being an LGBT employee. So it most certainly is a city issue because the city employs 2,700 people, and we need to make sure if they're doing a good job for the citizens of Chattanooga, they can keep doing it.
I think this will go down to Manny. This one came
Well,
tonight.
let me say this first about what he said about getting fired against everything.
Can I reply to this if he's going to get
When you work for the government, it's almost impossible to get fired. We caught a fireman on videotape stealing.
To the front desk.
Stealing, had him on tape. We fired him. He got an attorney. They come back and said, well, you know, there was somebody that was caught stealing way back here, and y'all didn't fire him, so you're not going to fire this guy. Hey, I know personally there's people working for the city that they have to hide because they can't do their job. It's almost impossible unless you kill somebody to get fired from any kind of government job.
Okay, Chris, you wanted a chance to respond?
Sometimes people get fired because of elections, but I will say that it is not impossible to get fired from the city of Chattanooga. I don't know what it was like in the Littlefield days, But it absolutely, you can be fired for malfeasance or poor performance for the city of Chattanooga, at least for the last 4 years.
Okay. Back down to Manny, I believe. One came tonight. What will you do about boarded up houses?
Well, I'll tell you what, the same thing we've tried to do ever since for 8 years, and I was on there, we board them up and we'd say we need to demo them, and the city would say, we can't afford it. That's why the city will not condemn houses, because if you condemn it, then you own it, then you tear it down. And you know, unless you raise people's taxes right now, or when I was there, you couldn't afford to tear them down. Now maybe we've come into a lot more money, and that's a thing that can be afforded. But back then, mostly it's just economics. The city didn't have the money to demolish the houses they would condemn that were boarded up.
I get extra points for that, y'all.
So blighted properties are definitely a scourge, especially in the southern part of District 7, kind of from this side of St. Elmo over to Alton Park and East Lake. It does lead to higher crime. It leads to, lower housing values in the area. It's a problem. Councilman Rico was right, demolitions were expensive. Fortunately, over the last 4 years, we've had very strong economic growth citywide in Chattanooga, and that does help everybody in the city in the sense that it gives us money to be proactive about those places. So a year and a half ago, we started something called the Land Bank Authority. And it's taken slower than I would like for it to, and frankly, I'm frustrated that we haven't utilized it more. But the Land Bank Authority is a group, an agency that allows us to transfer city-owned property to private developers if it's something we can't use, like a lot that nobody wants to build on, that we don't have the resources to build on, if they promise to build affordable housing either for purchase or for lease. That's something that we've done with about 10 properties so far. I wish it was about 100 properties. So it's one area where I'm going to tell you we can do better, and I'm going to push us to do that over the next 4 years.
I want to say something about this. You know, the city is good about giving vacant lots.
I think it was our state first.
Oh, well, I was going to respond. Oh, you hadn't done it? Yeah. All right, I'm sorry.
Let's go in order.
I thought you'd already did that. Go ahead.
All right.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
Oh, hey, you two guys, y'all have fun. I'm just gonna be entertained tonight, okay? I like to be entertained.
We've been there.
Okay. Back to the boarded up housing. That's one of the things I've based my candidacy on, because as I go through the neighborhoods and I see all these abandoned boarded up houses, I think it's atrocious, because it encourages crime and it encourages unsafe living conditions to keep the houses active without fully being in compliance. And that's what it's all about, is holding these property owners accountable. And whenever possible, if they need to be torn down, tear them down. Because I've ridden through all these areas, and next to a lot of those boarded up houses is abandoned cars, trash, tires, and debris. And when you're trying to develop an area and you bring somebody in and you want them to do something positive to help your community grow economically and socially, that's totally unacceptable. So for many of our areas that are struggling with high poverty and high crime, this is the first step, is cleaning up these abandoned, blighted neighborhoods, which has these homes that serve no purpose but to give criminal elements a chance to do what's not right, and unsafe housing conditions, because you have people living in those houses.
I just want to say, I appreciate the city that gives these vacant lots away, because I've served on what we call the CHODO board for the last 12 years. I've been chairman of the board for the last 4 years, and what we do is we build affordable houses on these lots. Now, what we call real affordable, I think they charge about $500 a month for families, and it's a great project, and we just keep hoping every year that the mayor gives us more money to build and gives us more property, but we're out there working, doing this.
Okay. Will you work to ensure that a qualified person be hired to fill this position?
Short answer, yes, and I'll try to keep my answer short because I think we're probably all running over a little bit tonight. So hopefully you'll appreciate that. I actually had a meeting with our Administrator of Economic and Community Development last week about this very issue with vacancies on the Historic Zoning Commission and also a vacancy in the Historic Preservation Planner position. We've had a couple of people in that position. They don't last very long. And a big part of the reason is, and I chair the Committee on Economic and Community Development, so I do work with this department a lot. A big part of the reason is the pay relative to how much responsibility that person has. It's an untenable situation. So somebody comes in and they're burned out 6 months into it. So one of the things Donna Williams and I are working on is restructuring that office to maybe include multiple people or taking some of the duties away from that person and shifting them to somebody else in the land development office to where we can have a happy, productive employee in that role to make sure we're protecting our historic neighborhoods.
The short answer is yes, I would. And just a short statement to that, you know, in addition to historic St. Elmo, I've talked to citizens from other parts of the district and other part of the city. And moving forward, there is a interest in historic preservation throughout our city. And I remember when I first moved here and that historic person was there, and you know, if I wanted to do windows or a gate, I had to go through that, and that was okay because I appreciate that. But I believe it's important to have that position and to make sure that as a city as a whole, that person is acting for historic preservations wherever it may be needed to be in the city of Chattanooga.
And yes, definitely. That's sort of, some of y'all weren't around 47 years ago when I moved to St. Elmo. You couldn't give these houses away. But not just me, but others that have died and gone. We fought hard to get this St. Elmo in the historic zoning. So I truly believe that because we fought hard for it, and I was part of that group.
I want to go out the box one time too. I definitely would do it.
Okay, it's your turn. Erskine, we'll start with you on this next question. Would you introduce new development and new businesses to the Alton Park area?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. This is the situation as it exists now. We have a zone that stops right there at 75 at Howard School, and it swings around to 27 that cuts off College Hill Courts, and then it stops there at Central. That's essentially where the priorities, as I've seen it, lie in economic development in Chattanooga. What needs to happen now is it needs to extend either further south of that area, and I've talked to a number of government, philanthropic, and corporate interest that wants to move out here. And that's going to be one of my priorities, is to start that from day one. Because until we make a commitment and show an interest in moving economic development beyond that I-75 corridor, then we're going to continue to run into a lot of the issues that we have. And it's creating low self-esteem and a lack of hope because nobody can really see any interest moving that way.
Would you repeat the question?
Let me get it. Would you introduce new development and new businesses to the Alton Park area?
Well, I don't know if I'd introduce it, I would support anything. The city council, no city council people bring business into the area. That's, you know, the Chamber of Commerce has recruiters, or if business come, they go to the county, state, and tell them, this is what we need, can we get this, can we get this tax breaks? And then the city council votes, you know, well, if it's going in the area, you have to get the permission of the residents there. And if they're willing to work with you and agree to it, yes, we vote yes. If not, you vote no. But we're limited. City council doesn't bring businesses in. It's other people. We just vote for tax breaks and zoning or rezoning.
I will interject just really briefly. I disagree with that because, you know, as the city council person for an area like this, it is my job to connect with the city council people, with the chamber people, the convention and visitors bureau people, and individuals on the state and even federal level if there's a need or options to bring businesses into town. So I would never, ever say that anything is not within the responsibility of the city council in uplifting District 7.
Erskine, you nailed it. You're right about that. And I'm going to disagree with Councilman Rico again. I know that shocks everyone in the room, but not only will I do that, I've already begun doing it on a specific project. So the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of community meetings, and Erskine, thank you for being there and supporting the project and the residents too. We actually had Planning Commission today for a $40 million investment in Alton Park, 264 units, 1,100 to 1,300 square feet. The rent's around $700 to $800. Terry McCullough's been at both of the meetings from the Oak Hills neighborhood. We've really had a lot of community involvement. So I don't have $40 million. I'm not going to a bank to borrow $40 million. The developer is. Here's what your city council person should be doing, and here's what I'm doing to make this happen. So I got approached by the developer a couple of months ago, which is not that strange a phenomena because I get approached by developers weekly. They all want to build on Chestnut Street or 19th Street or down by the riverfront or something like that. So after a city council meeting, a developer comes up to me and introduces himself. He's from Louisville, Kentucky, and he says, "I want to do a development in your district." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, well, Carter Street, where do you want to go near Findlay, And he says, "Well, Central Avenue at 51st Street." So I very quickly said, "Yeah, you want to go to the office? I'll get you. You want some coffee? You want some water? Come upstairs. We'll talk about this. What can I do to make this happen?" Because in 4 years in the council, he's the first person to ever come to me and say he wants to do a major development in Alton Park. Now, what people in Alton Park ask for, rightfully so, is we want a gas station, we want a grocery store, we want a drugstore, we want a bank, we want a daycare, we want a laundromat. They want those basic quality of life retail services. And the thing that holds them back from getting that is a lack of residential density. So if you look at Alton Park, it's a lot of old manufacturing land. And when anybody wants to come to town, let's say Walmart Neighborhood Market wants to put in a neighborhood grocery store, they're going to drop a pin at the corner of, say, 38th and Central, and they're going to draw a circle around it, 1 mile, 2 miles, and if there aren't enough people in that circle, they're not coming. So what we can do is get 264 family units in that immediate vicinity. The commercial development will follow, and more single-family housing will go up as a result of it. I'm really excited about it and really proud of it.
Let me elaborate just a little bit. I'm excited about the potential of that project because it still has to go through the various neighborhoods that exist in there. Right now, it's not fully accepted by the neighborhoods in that area, and that's okay. But I do believe it's a good project. But one thing that has to go along with that project is how is it going to affect that community 5 and 10 years down the line? And that's what has happened so many times, that projects has come in and that's all it was. And there's been a lot of disappointment in Alton Park because of that. Projects has come in, they have wound up incomplete or just have simply disappeared. So I like the $40 million project, but as a city council person, I would develop like a 5 or 10-year plan how it's going to continue to economically benefit those citizens in that area by creating jobs and affordable housing that will sustain it over time. And I thank you.
Manny,
Let not get me wrong. I've dealt with businesses coming here. FedEx. I don't know if y'all remember what FedEx is right now. They was going to make a dump ground out of it. It's going to be 100 foot high. I guess you could say I fought it. I got other people who applied it. We voted it down and got FedEx. I remember them calling me at my office and said, "Hey, FedEx people are here. Can you come down here and talk to them?" But I didn't do it by myself. I guess that's what I have a problem with. I didn't do it. We done it. It takes 5 votes for anything to get done. And two, some developments aren't welcome in some area. They wanted to hang me over those apartments behind Alton Park over there. Because a developer come and asked me, could we want to put those apartments there? I said, they won't let you do it. I said, it's been slated for a park or whatever, single home. They can't do it. Well, lo and behold, somehow or another, he come back and I said, look, I can't support it if the residents don't support it. Well, he come back and probably said, hey, the residents said it's okay, they have no problem with it. I said, well, fine, I'll vote for it. Well, after they started I happened to drive down there and see this building, and I got a call, said, what have you done? What have you let these people do? There was put in apartments there. I said, well, the developer said that y'all didn't have a problem with it. No, they didn't let us know. So I called him, said, are you sure that they didn't vote against it? Well, we had a meeting, and even the lady from the HUD come up there and said, look, I'm sorry, said HUD called and told us those restrictions were gone, sell it as it is, and it was on for that, and they put it up. They wanted to tar and feather me over that. So sometimes, you know, bringing in things that people don't want is not a good idea.
Okay, Chris wants to speak to that.
Well, since everybody else is speaking twice on this question, I'll just clarify. Yes, of course you get neighborhood buy-in, which is what we've been doing, and I've facilitated that developer meeting with the neighborhood now twice. We've got 2 more meetings coming up over the next few months, and I would never rely on a developer to tell me how a neighborhood feels. I would go directly to the neighborhood, and Terry McCullough sitting back there is one of about 75% of the people at the meeting the other night were very in favor of it. He's the neighborhood president, and he's in favor of it. But we have to maintain that constant communication to make sure people aren't taken advantage of, and the developer does what he says.
Okay, so Manny's talking about how you can, Chris, hold the microphone. This is going to be for you. Manny's talking about how you can get on the hot seat in the position of the council. So Chris, this is a question for you as the incumbent now. You've recently made statements about how much you've done for Alton Park and East Lake. The residents of those communities seem to be expressing the opposite sentiment. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, first of all, I don't grant your premise. There are always going to be a handful of residents in any place that are unhappy with where they live. I don't think there has been a massive group of residents in either of those places. I think you can look at, you know, the Bell School site, which was a proposed park 6 years ago. I was elected 4 years ago. And it was a proposed park, a joint venture between the city and county that, without going through the long story of land transfers, had become stagnant and was just sitting there basically as mosquito bait in the summertime, surrounded by neighborhoods. One of the first things I did when I came in was say, okay, Alton Park is an area, like Erskine mentioned before, that's been promised a lot, and most of those promises have been broken over the last few decades. This is once again, another project that Alton Park was promised by the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County, and they weren't seeing it through. So I got the mayor to buy the land, me, just one council person, not 5. I got the mayor to get the land back from the county, and then we found money in the capital budget to start building the park. It's under construction right now, and that was something that, you know, I didn't have an idea for a park in Alton Park. I found $1 million because Terry and Rosemary Porter and Tony Hare and other neighborhood leaders in the community wanted it. So that's $1 million. It's going to be the most expensive neighborhood park ever in the city of Chattanooga. It's just neighborhood. In addition, we have East Lake Park, which is the oldest park in the city of Chattanooga. It's been a zoo, it's been an amusement park. It's got a lot of environmental issues with the pond and the ground. I was there this morning as well. We're in year 1 of a 3-year renovation of that park that's just over $800,000. And I know I'm focused on parks with those two things. We paved a lot of roads in those areas. 12th Avenue was the worst road in the city. I got it paved in year 2, which was our first full budget year. So there are a lot of paving projects and sidewalk and improvement and beautification projects, but St. Elmo's very lucky. You have one of the prettiest parks in the city, and I've done improvements there with the restroom and the fencing and you know, some things that we've done for St. Elmo Park and playground to make it safer and more accessible. But when you have a nice park in your community, it increases the pride in your community. It also increases how much neighbors interact with each other. And right now, Alton Park and East Lake don't have quality parks. So hopefully it'll increase the overall quality of life there.
Okay, well, that was for Chris, so I'm going to just let...
I can't respond to that.
Well, no, that was Chris's question, so... But we're going to line it up a little bit here with this question. Erskine, I guess you'll be next. I would like to know where you stand on laying hens within city limits. Trust fund, an affordable housing trust fund, and 2, a community land trust. Will you support the creation of these necessary programs? And if not, what would you like to tell the thousands of low-income Chattanoogans who will be without housing options in their city by the end of your term?
Well, you know, I have to look and see what it entails. I mean, you can't just make a broad statement, yeah, I support that. I support anything that will help people. That's why I work so hard on Chota to really build income homes. These other agencies that build supposedly low-income housing, we think, that's not low income. You know, our houses, we can't charge over $500 something a month for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. That's affordable, low-income housing. So I'd have to see what it entails, what they're trying to do, and I would say, why don't you just support Chodo and help them build more houses that really are affordable, low-income, for low-income people.
Cal, that's another really good question. And so we had the downtown workforce housing pilot for a couple of years. We incentivized a lot of moderate income, middle-class worker housing downtown, and that was largely in response to what's happened in Metro Nashville over the last 10 years or so. Nashville has exploded so quickly, they weren't able to keep up with the growth, and if you're not extremely wealthy, you can't live anywhere near downtown. So that was not designed to be low income, just middle-class housing downtown, so it wasn't just people who could afford $1 million for a condo. So what we've done over the last 6 months now with Standard Coosa-Thatcher and hopefully this apartment complex over here on Central Avenue is go after truly low-income housing. So that will be the focus for the next 2 to 3 years until we feel like we've saturated the low-income housing market. And then things like a land trust, which other cities use very well, or expanding the land bank authority, those are all things that we would look at doing, and I would probably be supportive of that as far as we got a return on our investment. But I will tell you that once we find a solution like that, it works for about 2 or 3 years, and then we have to shift to another part of the city or another income level. So it's something we constantly have to look at and monitor and make sure we're being proactive to provide housing options for everybody.
I would look into it, I would study it, and I do think it has its validity, but I would not just focus on just one area and just keep shifting. I would make sure that there's allocation to get into every neighborhood that was suffering with affordable housing, and that would be one of the conditions that I would make in any kind of a land trust deal or any other program, because I believe it's very important that we have to be strategic and we have to be holistic, that no neighborhood is left out or left behind because of targeting, like a lot like what has happened downtown.
Okay, this one goes into downtown area since we have a broad district. Okay, so this relates to downtown. The bicycle lanes on Broad Street make it very difficult for anyone having a disability to get out of the passenger side of the car. Could the concrete Maginot lines, the concrete dividers, be replaced with a double set of lines and signs?
Can I pass on that? No. Oh, the Broad Street bike lanes are the bane of my existence. That was an administrative priority. Yes, I voted for it. And yes, I think we should have multimodal transportation. We should have more bike lanes in Chattanooga because different people like to get to work in different ways. A lot of people in St. Elmo, for example, bike to work downtown. I see several of you in this room that do it every day. The problem is the implementation of it. It was botched. We've tried about 5 different ways to put reflectors, to put different paint on them, to keep people from tripping over them. I've had many, many intense conversations with the Chattanooga Department of Transportation about the ineffective way they were put in. And I think people generally agree that they weren't done right. And we should use that as a lesson for the future. As far as we're changing them now, I'm open to any changes. I've instituted about 4 so far, including adding more handicap-specific parking spaces to the side of the street so they don't have to deal with that curb issue at all.
I would like to just get rid of all of them, quite frankly. And this is not a personal opinion, but it's from the number of businesses that I have spoke to down there, and they think it's one of the worst things that has ever happened to the city. Now, all you bikers out there, this is nothing against bikers, but I've had my challenges getting out on the driver's side of the car, walking around, getting into it. But, right now, it is just something that, quite frankly, we're going to have to live with, because to change it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's just one of those regrettable things that the city did, that they didn't give much thought, and we're just gonna have to be tolerant of it now.
Well, hopefully nobody's soot over at the city. And like I said, I serve on several boards. I talk to people all over the city and the county, and that is one of the most hated things in downtown. And what they say is, he's pandering, the mayor is pandering to the elitist group. Very few people back there. There's not that many that use the streets, but you can't pander to a few like that causes a problem for everybody that goes downtown. It is subject to people when they see me, and trust me, people recognize who I am, and they stop me. Hey, why did they do this? Why did they do that? And a lot of times I don't even know I'm not on council anymore. I said, look, that's not me anymore. So it is a problem with people in the city and the county.
Okay, where do we start off first? St. Elmo in recent months has had numerous repairs to water and sewer lines. At each repair, the streets are left with terrible patch jobs. What do you propose to what do you propose to fix these street problems? Sorry about that.
One thing that needs to happen is when they're doing public works project like that, it should be better coordinated, and people doing it should be accountable. As a city councilman, when that happens, I want to get with those entities that are doing that repair work, and on the front end, letting them know what the expectation is. That we expect, when you finish this work, to be put back actually better than what it was before. And I believe that what has happened is they've come in, they've done the work, did what they do, and move on, and there's no accountability. I believe in accountability on the front end of the project would alleviate a lot of these problems. And that's what I would do. I would make it a point, as a matter of fact, anywhere in the city, but particularly since we're talking about St. Elmo, that any projects moving forward will have accountability, and there will be an expectation that it is put back the way it was when you started the project.
Unless it's been changed, we passed an ordinance on the city council that was supposed to happen. Put it back like it was. Now, if they're not enforcing that, I don't know why, but we passed an ordinance. We had that same problem back then, and we said, now you put it back like it was.
No, Manny's right. We do have that ordinance on the books. We haven't changed it. And I'll tell you, it's not actually public works projects. What I think the question was about was typically crews from Tennessee American Water Company and Chattanooga Gas Company. So when they go out and do repair work, and TAWC's done a lot in the last few months, a lot of it has to do with putting in new pipes, which were sorely needed in this part of the city. But they should be responsible for the quality of work that they're doing. So when they go out, yes, they're required to put the road back at least at the quality level that it was before. Sometimes they don't, which is why I'm on the phone with the government affairs people at least once a week with TAWC, and there's people in this room I've called on your behalf to TAWC, I think, in the last few months. But we have to know about it, and that's the biggest issue, is if I know about a road patch job, or if I know about something that has, been ill repaired the day or two before, I can act on it quickly. But the more time goes by and the more road use there is after that, the harder it is to say it was the TAWC crew. So as soon as I hear something about that, I'm on the phone with Public Works or with TAWC to get it rectified.
Let me just say something right quick. Knowing my neighbors in St. Elmo, when any kind of work is done, it's on the email. So at that point, that's thank you. So, but at that point, that is when I, as a city council, will go out there and look at their work immediately and not wait till they're through. It's almost like when you get your car fixed, you go take it home, something's wrong, it's wrong. But we have to do better, regardless if it's Tennessee American Water, the gas company, that when we find out they're doing work, that we're out there talking to whoever their supervisor is and let them know that there's an expectation that it needs to be put back the way it was when you found it.
So if you have a problem with a patch job on your street, you call your councilman immediately. That's what I'm hearing.
Or the St. Elmo email.
Okay, let's see, Manny? Yeah, please. Traffic from North Georgia through St. Elmo gets worse each year. Will you work with the city and the state transportation departments to develop a solution?
Well, I did when I was on city council, because I was the chairman of the TPO, which handles that. And I don't know what happened, but they still were talking and thought that they had gotten with Georgia to put that bypass through Wilson Road and everything, come through there. I don't know, they was working on it when I was there. I guess they're still working on it, but you know, it takes Tennessee and Georgia, and there is a route that's supposed to come down Wilson Road.
And that bypass has been talked about as long as the high-speed rail from here to Atlanta. And both have the same issue. You've got to deal with the Congress people from those districts, and I will tell you that there has not yet been a solution that North Georgia and Hamilton County, Southeast Tennessee have agreed on. At the city level, I think there's a lot of desire, probably from everybody up here, to reduce the traffic barreling through down St. Elmo Avenue coming out of North Georgia. I mean, we could build a wall, maybe. I don't know if that would be the solution. That's popular these days. But other than that, no, we have to work with all the different government agencies at all levels of government to make it happen. But the money's going to be federal money, so we have to work to get it.
Woo! And I'm only saying that because I have to deal with that traffic twice a day, in the morning when I'm taking my son back and forth to work and when I pick him up. And the time is now. Too many times there's projects that's been out there for a period of time, and all we get is you got all these different entities you have to deal with. I get that. But I've started conversations on the state as well as the DOT about what would be the solution to that. And I understand there's been talk about the bypass. What I want to do as the next city councilman, should y'all elect me, is work with all these different entities from day one to start working this problem out. And the fact that it's federal monies involved, I've been in contact with federal people about those issues based on what I've heard from the citizens of St. Elmo. So with that being said, that is going to be one of my priorities, because I see in the future a very dangerous, hazardous situation. And as we continue to grow as a community, that needs to happen sooner rather than later. Because it doesn't make any sense to have those big, seem like mostly fuel trucks, barreling down at excessive speed. And I'm trying to turn there at Tennessee and St. Elmo. It's not a pretty sight. So that is one of the commitments that I've heard from the citizens of St. Elmo that they want me to have a priority in moving forward with. And we'll see how that works out.
I think I answered that.
Yeah.
But again, it's true. And people don't understand the TPO because you have all the cities that's in the region area that are all asking the federal government for money. And so each one of them wants a part of it, and it's kind of hard to get something to us for that project, especially that project. And like I said, I don't know what the hold up is because I'm not there anymore.
You know, one last thing. I've been to Washington, and I've been part of how they allocate appropriations for federal projects. And when you deal with the right people, when you communicate with the right people, and you know the people on the appropriations committee for projects like that, it's not that very difficult. So I've already been looking at that process and talking to the federal people who are on the appropriation committee. So it's out there. It's just a question now of just following up, probably going to Washington a few times, and exerting a little pressure to make sure that they know that this is important, this is unsafe conditions, and it's not good for our neighborhood.
Okay, time for two more questions, then we'll call it a night. The first, where are we?
Chris?
Manny.
No, I'm saying, you know who's next. Keep it up.
You're keeping me on track. A long question, but it relates to cutting the Carter routes in St. Elmo. bus hours,
Oh,
and so they're no longer running as many bus hours and no longer any Saturday schedule. Will you work to try to restore some of the Carter service?
yeah, of course, you know, every year the mayor has a budget and budgets so much for Carter. Every year, I was lucky that the mayor, and Tom Dugan would convince the mayor that we needed the money to keep the routes open, because you know, those of you that ride the bus know that was a fight every year. But fortunately, Tom Dugan convinced the mayor, and I got the votes to pass the budget that included the money to keep Carter going here in St. Elmo.
Yes, I believe that's very important. You know, they do these studies and they don't consider that people need this mode of transportation. And I will get with Carter and anybody else that need to let them know that this is important to our community, that we must have this bus service. It must be timely and it has to be efficient so that we as a community can do what we need to do via the Carter service.
Well, in the 8 years before I took office, I'll say that Carter funding didn't go up every year. I'd heard that claim before. It's not true. I've got all the budgets. It went up several times and it went down several times, but more or less fluctuated from year to year, up and down. In the 4 years we've been in office, we've increased it twice. Carter gets the biggest portion of their funding from the federal government. Close second is Chattanooga. They get a little bit from Hamilton County. And it sounds like they're about to start getting from Red Bank and East Ridge again to do limited runs down Ringgold Road and Dayton Boulevard, which is fantastic. So I'll say that the Carter Board decided to cut midday service to St. Elmo because they were averaging about 6 riders on a bus. And they instead shifted those resources to Alton Park for Sunday service, where they had huge demand. I know it wasn't a popular decision in St. Elmo, but if I've got 30 or 40 people that want to ride a bus on Sunday in Alton Park, and 6 people who want to ride it in the middle of the day when they can ride an hour or two later or before in St. Elmo, I would make the same decision that Carter made. I would put the buses where the need is the greatest, and in that case, the need was greater in Alton Park for that time period. That said, if we get increased ridership in St. Elmo, I would be the first one begging Carter to increase the routes coming in and out of St. Elmo during the middle of the day.
How can you ride if there's no bus to ride?
Okay.
Like on Saturday and in the middle of the day.
All right. Last question. Okay. So, Chris, I think we're starting with you.
Yeah, it's
Last question. What 2 things will be your priority after you win this election? So each of you can answer that.
That's a theoretical question, right?
Erskine, if you win it, Manny, if you win it, what 2 things will be your priority?
Should you honor me with your vote and your support and elect me again to serve you for 4 more years, I will do 2 things. First of all, I will take the day after the election off, because these guys run hard. This has been a rough campaign. But the biggest thing I think that plagues our community and touches every part of District 7 in the city is the lack of quality workforce development. So I've already taken meetings with several union groups and some faith-based groups in town for how we can increase those opportunities. Now you've got a mayoral candidate running around saying we're going to spend $50 million and rebuild Kirkman, and you know, it's going to be like life was 50 years ago. That's not going to happen. It'll take years to do. You won't have an immediate effect. And there's no need to do it because there are qualified organizations in this city today that are doing workforce training for jobs that pay $30, $40 an hour and don't require a college degree. So my #1 mission in the next 4 years is to get a qualified workforce that can provide for their families and do all I can as a city councilman to make sure they have access to it.
My priority is going to be expanding the economic equity that currently does not exist in our district. As I mentioned earlier, it stops at I-75 at Howard. For us to be a great district, we have to expand that. And one of the ways we're going to do it is partner with corporations, faith-based groups, philanthropic organizations, entities that want to see progress made in Alton Park, Pineywood, Eastlake, as well as continue the economic growth that's going on in St. Elmo. And that's been terribly lacking. Until we expand that economic equity, then we will not be able to have a job force, workforce development, because it's all hand in glove. Affordable housing is all linked to economic equity, because if you don't have a job, you can't have an apartment. The days of having apartments that's fully subsidized are over. So my focus is on expanding the economic equity that does not currently exist in District 7. And on top of that would be revitalizing our neighborhood and starting to eventually get rid of all these abandoned, boarded up houses and these lots that are unkept, full of trash, full of tires, that just brings down our overall neighborhood. You're wondering why we have some of the issues we got in our area is because of the way our neighborhoods look. You know, they bring down self-esteem and people just don't feel good about it. Once you start changing that dynamic, people feel good about themselves, they feel good about their neighborhoods, they run out criminals, and those two things I feel are very important as far as on my agenda: economic equity and community revitalization.
And that's a tough question, because, you know, I've always been the type of person that whatever needs to be done, that's what I need to work on. You know, St. Elmo, downtown, they don't need a whole lot of things to help them have a better quality of life. There's so many, and sometimes, you know, it's good to, like, when you step back from something that you were doing and you get so caught up in the everyday of running things. I mean, during 8 years I was on the council, we had so much development all over the district, downtown, and everything, that you almost forget that there's some people out there in Eastlake and Black Bottom. Some people don't even know what Black Bottom is. That is just, you wouldn't believe how poor and run down those people, they're the ones that need help right now. But I'm for helping everybody whenever I can. You talk about workforce development. For 15 years, I've been on the Southeast Development Workforce Investment Board that helps train people, help them get jobs, help them get better jobs. They need a better job, have them, give them grants to pay for their schooling, for careers. Like I said, I've been on so many boards that I try to help everybody and involved in a lot of things that people don't even know what's going on. I'll tell you one thing, Chattanooga is one of the most philanthropic cities that I ever known. They help so many people, and like I said, I'm there to do whatever I need. That's why I'm a full-time accountant when I'm there.
All right, let's express our appreciation. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you.